Hey, welcome back. And if you're new here, my name's Christina Kent, and I'm an artist based out of San Francisco. Now, this year I switched to being a full-time artist, and I started my art career actually building it on Instagram back in 2020. During the pandemic, I grew my following from about 300 followers to over 70,000 today. I've made countless posts, I've grown a wide audience, and I've experienced a lot of benefits from the platform. And I get a lot of people asking me how I grew my following on Instagram. But more and more, I'm starting to ask myself, is it even worth it? And when people ask me how to grow their following on Instagram, my first question to them is why? Why do you want more followers? And if you're drawn to this video because you have the same question, please just take a moment to really think about it. Why do you want more followers on Instagram? And you might think that this is a trivial question, like of course you would want more followers on Instagram as an artist, but I don't think it's so simple because I think sometimes we can set goals for ourselves. We can say that we want something, not because we want the actual thing, but because we've made assumptions on what we think that thing will get us. Because let's be real, no one is spending hours and hours just to see a number go up on their account. They're watching that, they want the number to go up because of what they think that number means, what they think that number will get them. So what does the number of followers mean to you? More money? More fame? More impact? It's worth thinking about because maybe there are better ways to get to that outcome. When my Instagram account started gaining traction and I started to think, well, maybe I could be a full-time artist, I saw increasing my follower count as the way to get to that goal. I thought, oh, if I increase the number of followers I have, then my art sales are going to go up and I'm going to be able to pursue art full-time. And it seemed to be working at first. I noticed as my follower count was increasing, I was also selling a lot more paintings. But I realized that this trend wasn't linear. At some point, some of my reels went viral and I started getting a lot of followers, but I wasn't seeing my painting sales increase by nearly as much. I was spending hours and hours on Instagram. I had developed a pretty large following, and yet I still wasn't seeing the income growth that I thought was going to materialize. Meanwhile, I also saw a lot of artists who had relatively modest followings and who were making great careers in art. This brought me to realize that having a large quantity of followers wasn't the same as having a lot of collectors who wanted to buy my paintings. I think a lot of my followers just enjoyed my reel and wanted to watch a fun video, but they didn't want to buy my art. And honestly, a lot of them could be bots. I don't actually know. At the same time, I also noticed two other big headwinds from Instagram. First, they were changing the algorithm a lot, and I think over time, at least from my experience and other artists on Instagram I've spoken to, it seems like it's becoming a lot harder to grow an audience and reach a really wide, broad audience on Instagram. And second, Instagram's promise is a little too good to be true. They promise that you can get a lot of exposure for your work. They make it really easy. All you have to do is make a post and it can go viral and you can get tons of followers. But really, that doesn't often happen. And the major caveat is that even if you do get a lot of followers, you are still beholden to the platform. Because here's the thing, my audience on my Instagram isn't my own. It belongs to Instagram. And if they change the algorithm, they can decide whether any of those people actually see my work. That means if I'm wholly dependent on Instagram, my career is completely tied to the whims of the algorithm. And that's really difficult. So that led me to think, what are some other ways that artists can grow their following, can grow their impact, can make sales and build a career outside of Instagram or social media? And this has led me to building quality connections with collectors and other artists. For collectors, I've shifted more to in-person events where I can actually meet people and get to know them. Because if I'm building relationships with people, that's something that no change in the algorithm can take away. This means having open studio events where collectors can come and visit my studio. It also means showing my work at galleries and going to gallery openings where I'm actually meeting and talking to people. It's not as easy as connecting with someone over Instagram, but it's a much stronger connection. I've also started building an email newsletter, which you can sign up for if you want to get latest updates on my art. But the cool thing about my email newsletter is that I can send updates to my collectors on a regular basis, and it's through email. I have my customers' emails and contact information, and if I send an email to them, it's pretty likely that they're gonna see it. Compare that to an Instagram post of mine, which may only be seen by 5% of my followers. And I'm also pursuing platforms like YouTube where I can make stronger connections with other artists and people who want to get into art. I think YouTube still has some of the issues that Instagram has, and it's not my own platform, but I've noticed that the conversations I have with people here on YouTube and the longer form content I can make, it just seems to cultivate higher quality connections. So my thoughts around Instagram have been shifting in this way. And still, now that I've built my large following on Instagram, I definitely don't want to just throw it away, and I'm still posting, I'm still making reels, I'm still trying to maintain it, but it's not my total focus. And I think if I were starting off today, I'm not sure if I would have gone down this route. If I were starting today, I would still post to Instagram and try to connect with other artists and galleries because I think that it is kind of the main social network for the art world. But I would definitely put more of my focus in creating in-person connections, doing in-person events, or sharing content that's like longer form and more in-depth in places like YouTube. So if you're an artist and you want to start or grow your Instagram, by all means do it. I still think it's a great way to connect with artists and galleries and to see what's going on in the general art world. But if you want to sell your work and you really want to provide value to people, I would not focus wholly on Instagram. Instead, I would focus more on building quality connections with supporters, whether it's through in-person gallery events or open studios, or it's by creating content that's more in-depth and long form, like what I do on YouTube. Anyway, those are my thoughts on Instagram. I would love to hear if things that I've said resonated with you, or if you have any questions, please post them in the comments. And as always, I wanted to give a huge shout out to my supporters on Patreon. Thank you guys so much for supporting this channel and making these videos happen. If you like my art, if you like my videos, and you want to help me make more, check out my Patreon at the link. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you next time.